Welcome to the Friday Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson, and today's episode is presented by Optum. Optum is the leading information and technology-enabled health services business dedicated to helping make health system work better for everyone. With more than 210,000 people worldwide, Optum delivers intelligent, integrated solutions that help modernize the health system and improve our overall population health. Optum is part of United Healthcare Group, and Optum is a proud partner of the Players Championship, and Rory McIlroy is an Optum Health Ambassador. Visit Optum.com to learn more. All right, we've got our Ryder Cup preview today. So we're doing 5 things about the Ryder Cup, and we are joined by new Friday Golf staff member, Kevin Van Valkenburg. Kevin, I'm excited to have on full time. He will be contributing a ton after a long career in sports journalism. He'll be contributing a ton to our written video and podcast forms of content. So it's awesome to have Kevin on for this Ryder Cup preview. We will be doing our 5 things and excited to kind of break down the Ryder Cup. We've got it kicks off on Friday of next week at Bethpage Black. Big, sturdy golf course. I think we know what Bethpage entails. It is a course where distance is really rewarded. I think the setup will be an interesting conversation early in the week, and we'll see what it entails. But I'm guessing they're going to opt. If I was the U.S. team, I'd opt for a little bit shorter rough, just because the distance, I think, advantage goes to Europe a little bit, and the shorter the rough you have, I think the better chance for shorter hitters who have to hit longer approaches out of said rough is. So I would look at that as kind of the setup key. It's pretty benign around the greens. So, I think that's one thing. If you can get it up around the greens and you have a half decent short game, you're not going to get tested a ton around the greens. The test really comes around the length, the size, and hitting shots up to elevated greens from long distances. So I'll be very curious how they set this golf course up. And before we get to Kevin, one big thing that we had go on this week, besides bringing Kevin on full time, is we had our the pre-order release of our new book, our first ever golf book. It is volume 1. It is centered around golf courses. It combines our writing, our photography, and graphics that Cameron Hurtis makes of holes and different things into a book. And the theme of volume 1 of our coffee table book is golf courses that shaped Friday golf. So we're turning 10 in December this year. It's kind of crazy. But this is a collection of golf courses that personally shaped some of our key, contributors with me and Garrett, and as well as golf courses that were, huge in the, growth and evolution of Friday golf. So you've got golf courses such as Shore Acres, probably the first great golf course that I ever played in my life. And then you have golf courses like Lawsonia and Sweetens Cove that had huge impacts early on in Friday golf. Pasatiempo, Garrett rode up, and Pasatiempo was one of the first great golf courses he saw in his life. So I'm really excited to release this book, and you can go online and I would urge you to do the pre-order. It's going to deliver around Christmas time. Probably, I think early December is when we have it slated to deliver. The pre-order helps us out a ton because it just, with books, you don't know how many to buy. So if you're interested in this book, it's going to be a beautiful book. I'm really pleased with how the design turned out. Go on to proshop.thefriedegg.com and pre-order yours there. I can't wait for this to be out in the world. And thank you to everybody for all the support over the 10 years. It's wild that we're at the 10-year mark. I've been doing this now longer than any other thing in my life. So it's pretty cool, and a lot of great courses visited. And I really can't wait to do more volumes of this. We'll have volume 2 out next year as well. So collect these, and we'll keep making them. And thank you to everybody that's pre-ordered it already this week. So thanks, and let's get to Kevin Van Valkenburg and the Ryder Cup. All right, we're here, the 45th playing of the Ryder Cup. It's been a home team game for the last few years, and I think this year there's some optimism, as it's probably the best European team that we've seen playing away Ryder Cup in a long time. And for this 5 things, I welcome on Friday Golf team member, Kevin Van Valkenburg. Kevin, welcome on.
Andy, what a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the kind and generous introduction.
We're going to be on site next week at the Ryder Cup in Bethpage. We'll be hammering the ground out there, trying to pick up on all the scuttlebutt. But let's get to our 5 things preview. Obviously, this is kind of the last big event of the year, if you don't include the Hero World Challenge. But this is kind of the last windfall. So obviously everything gets magnified when it's in New York, because New Yorkers love to talk about how it's the biggest and best, no matter what it is, when it's there. This is I think it's going to be a long week of prep. But what's your first thing that you're looking forward to, or your storyline to watch for this year's Ryder Cup?
Now, Andy, do you think we are doing these in importance of least important to most important, or
No.
just like random, like throw against the wall?
You get to go wherever you want, and usually I will weave mine into whatever you say.
Okay. Well,
and sometimes, as astute guests point out, I usually will get more than 5 things in. But it's my podcast, and I get to play by my own rules.
This is true. Well, since it is your podcast, I wanted to start with something close to your heart. Chicago's favorite golfer, Matt Fitzpatrick. Matt Fitzpatrick has been a horrendous Ryder Cup player. I can vividly remember
Northwestern alums favorite.
Excuse me. Chicago's not fully claiming him, because I heard like big parade in Chicago for him.
It's all the spin-off. Northwestern had this ad slogan years ago that they called Chicago's Big Ten team, which obviously, as a graduate of the state school, that really chapped a lot of people's asses. It's like the university, this small little private school is Chicago's Big Ten team, not the giant state university.
Sure. Certainly the snottiest journalism program in the country, Andy. This narrowly edging out Syracuse as the snottiest program in the country.
Our Syracuse alum, producer PJ, who can't talk on this podcast, is cheering in the background as Syracuse was not labeled as the snottiest.
We're number 2. All right, so Matt Fitzpatrick. I can vividly remember the 2016 Ryder Cup, my first Ryder Cup. I was walking around kind of late Thursday afternoon, and Matt Fitzpatrick had found a hole all by himself where he was just like pounding drivers like over and over, because he was trying to get away from the watchful eye of the hateful media. He was struggling big time. He was nervously, trying to figure out driver. His brother had written that letter basically calling out the ugly Americans, and all the pressure was on him, and he did not play well. He did not play well in whistling. I think you can argue that he played just kind of okay, except for one match in Italy. He's 1-7 in 3 Ryder Cups played. I think, it's probably the last guy on the team, basically, to be one of Luke Donald's guys. I think you'd probably rather have Alex Noren if you're Luke Donald. And so I want to see, what does Fitzy do? He's not exactly like the player that he was a couple years ago, as the results have kind of been not there. And I love it when somebody gets, to be the sort of, the guy that the American crowd really rags on, really feels like they can rattle. And I'm afraid that Fitzy might be that dude.
I have not dove into all-time Ryder Cup records, but he is 1-7 on his career.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a landmark event in Rome that he won a point because he had not contributed anything, even a half point to that date. I don't think he's going to play a lot.
Okay.
But I will say, I think he played quite well to earn a spot on the team. If you look through really since the PGA, he's been one of the most consistent players in the world. Now, pre-PGA, he was very bad. He was in a bad place. And I do think we talk about traits a lot with Ryder Cup players.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about the Ryder Cup a ton. But at the end of the day, it's 1 week and it's 3 days of golf. And golf's like one of the most variable sports in the world. Some weeks you have it, some weeks you don't have it. And as I've thought about this more, I think like you obviously have like skills that you can take advantage, especially in like alternate shot with pairing players to amplify them. But at the end of the day, like what you kind of want is a team of guys that have like a high floor in the sense of this guy is really consistent and I generally know what I get week in, week out.
Yeah.
And I think like Fitzy, the back half of this year has been a very high floor guy. Now, did he win anything? Did he have any landmark finishes? No. But if you go look at his results from the PGA, it is just chock full of top 10 finishes. Mm-hmm. And I think like I didn't expect to be making a case for Matt Fitzpatrick, but I think that's what you want out of your team is you want guys that you generally know what you're going to get from them. And I'm curious to see how much he plays, but if he has a bad Ryder Cup, say he goes 0-3 or 0-2, then that record just becomes, you know, an amusing anecdote of Fitzy too is I was walking around at Whistling Straits, and it was the afternoon that JT chugged the beer.
Okay.
Fitzy was
kind of half chugged a beer. I mean, let's be honest. He didn't really chug it.
Fitzy was like very pissed off about that.
Sick.
He was not playing.
Yeah.
But he was very upset. So just an anecdote, like he does get fired up, but he was kind of talking just out loud to whoever wanted to hear it about the absurdity of them chugging beer on the tee.
Nice. What a featherweight pillow fight that would be between the two of them. You know, I'm not sure we're topping out at 300 pounds between the two of them. Data Golf had Fitzy fell to 104th in their rankings in the world this year. Now all the way back up to 8th. So, it's really trending in the right direction, Andy.
I guess I'll go there with my next one. I think I like to think about this as the last time the U.S. hosted the Ryder Cup. You were there, right? Were you there?
I was not there the last time. I was getting married that day, in fact.
Oh.
Yeah. So my wedding anniversary coming up again during this Ryder Cup. I was foolish enough to always have my wedding anniversary be on Ryder Cup weekend.
Valid excuse. I went with Labor Day, so it's a good, nothing really happens on Labor Day. I think like I always like to think about them in that kind of 4-year window.
Mm.
And I think one of the things is like we left 2021, like, is Europe dead?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way this competition could go on? The U.S. team was so stacked. And if you think about like what the difference between this U.S. team and 2021 U.S. team was, you had like DJ and Brooks at their peak of powers. Yep. Morikawa was like a standout player. Scotty Scheffler was the last guy on the team, but then all of a sudden in the Ryder Cup, you were like, oh my God, look at this guy. And really, like, you looked at the roster and you're like, Harris English is going to be gone, but like nobody else is going to be gone for a long time. Now, Harris English might be might be like the third best player on the U.S. team.
I'm excited to hear that you thought Spieth would be there as a generational guy. That you're confident that he'd just be a stalwart on Ryder Cup teams for years to come.
But you looked at the European team and you're like, who is going to be on this team? And
a lot of olds, yeah.
There were a lot of old guys, but then in particular, Lowry, Fleetwood, and Hatton were not necessarily lighting the world on fire. Hatton was kind of at the early stages of becoming a, world-class player. Tommy Fleetwood was not the same self that he was at in France at Le Golf National. He had taken a step back.
Yep.
Shane Lowry was a good but very inconsistent player. Big Shot Bob had not come on the scene, and at Rome, you're kind of like, well, this guy, I think he was ranked like 50th in the world, 55th in the world, 140th in the Data Golf rankings at Rome. And you're like, this guy's not a Ryder Cup player. And if you look at it now, Tommy Fleetwood in the Data Golf rankings is third in the world, sixth in the official world golf rankings. He's been, outside of probably Scotty, the most consistent player in the world this year. You look at Bob McIntyre, and it's been astounding to see his progression. He's ninth in the world rankings, 20th in Data Golf. Like, you think about the market improvement of them over the years. They've added Ludwig Aubert to this group, who's a world-class player. Viktor Hovland and obviously more and Rory are constant. Shane Lowry, I think, has just become a more consistent world-class player over this time. And Tyrrell Hatton has been, obviously he's obscured by LIV, but he's been one of the best players in the world in 2020, 2025. So you start to look at it and it's like, there's a huge improvement from guys that you did not know what they were going to be and don't like necessarily jump off the page because of otherworldly traits as studs. The addition of a few young players, and all of a sudden this team, when you look at it on paper, and we've never really, I can't remember any time in my life that we said this, is pretty much a dead equal to the U.S. team.
Yep.
And I think that's an amazing thing. Like, we've never had one of these contested where you look at it on paper and you're like, these teams are equal. And that's where we're at for this year.
I would argue 2006, like Europeans, maybe 2004, that time the Europeans probably should have been favored even if they weren't. Those are probably better teams when you got like Chris Riley and, Steve Pate and Brett Wietrich and things of that nature on the U.S. team. I think, but you're right. Like it's truly, I think that would bring us, Andy, to, if I'm allowed, my next one that this item on the list is, I think Rory continues to be the needle in this stuff. And Rory slapping the table in Italy a few years ago and saying, we're going to win in Bethpage. Rory has been the Ryder Cup story of my golfing media lifetime. He was the story in 16, even though they didn't win. He, shushing the crowd back and he's saying, I can't hear you, and bowing after that eagle. And, he was the story 2 years later, and he didn't play amazing in Paris, but he was sort of still the emotional lightning rod for that team. And, he was bad in whistling. He would be the first to tell you, he didn't make a birdie an entire match in, 4-ball, which is crazy. He was crying afterwards, like, of how much it meant to him to sort of go off first and restore some pride. And I think he beat Xander that day. I just think I'm so excited for him to, like, the opportunity to essentially flip the script in this. Like, if you called your shot 2 years ago that you were going to win a Ryder Cup on foreign soil, and then you went out and did it because you played great, that would be an unbelievable, like, sort of Mark Messier being like, I guarantee we're going to win this series. I know PJ's nodding at this as a Rangers guy, but that would mean, like, I think a lot to golf history. If that clip got played over and over and over again, we're going to win in Bethpage, and then they did win in Bethpage, like, that would kind of cement Rory's Ryder Cup legacy for sure.
Yeah, he's been, I would say, a pretty good. Especially if you take Whistling Straits out of it, which I think he was just in a bad spot in his career. I mean, he was basically like the 15th ranked player in the world that week, which is like that's about as low as he's been in 16, 17 years playing pro golf. If you take that out of it, he's been just such a good Ryder Cup player.
Yep.
Obviously, he won the Way one in Medina. I think like the greater aspect of this is like when you zoom out, and if they go on to win this Ryder Cup away, and you zoom out and you look at his year.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Scottie Scheffler's been the best player in the world. But it's hard to say it's a better year than somebody who goes and wins, Pebble Beach. Of course, he hadn't won at. It's like you add your name to the list of people that have won at Pebble Beach in a signature event. He wins another Players. He wins the Masters and completes the Grand Slam. He wins the Irish Open.
Yeah.
And then if he wins an away Ryder Cup, it's a sensational year. And I know Scottie has won 2 majors, and I would probably still say that Scottie's year is better from the sense of just pure golf. But in terms of wins, stories, narratives,
emotional wins,
yes.
Emotional impact on the history of your career, like in the history of the game. I think I might take Rory.
Yes.
Like either of those, a Ryder Cup. I mean, was the Players even as like more impactful than Scottie's PGA win? Like in some ways, I mean, I could make the argument that it was like certainly like a stronger field, the Players, right? Like, I don't know.
It's so I think Rory is just an interesting, and the last time we saw him on American soil, he was bad. And that adds in in his journey just through this year where he was he was great at the beginning of the year. The Masters hits, he wins. He then hits this lull, complacency. I think like I'm always amazed at how just normal Rory is. Like that's kind of like the way any normal person behaves. Yeah. Like if a salesperson got to close it a big deal, you know what they do for the next 2 months is they kind of just hang out. Rory goes into this lull. He doesn't play well. And then it's like the Ryder Cup's coming back around. He has a bad FedEx Cup playoffs, but all of a sudden then it's just the game's coming back and he's playing as good a golf as anybody in the world now heading in outside of Scottie. He's
just fun, right? He makes every Ryder Cup interesting with, how emotional he gets into it, how, he gives great quotes. He just lives and breathes for it, which is funny after, he would be the first to sort of call himself an idiot for saying it. But like way back in the day, it was like, it's an exhibition. It doesn't mean much to me. And then when he finally played and won, like it just overwhelmed his senses in every way.
Let's go to somebody that I don't know if either of them are on each other's Christmas cards list. Let's go to Bryson DeChambeau. He's on my list.
Tell me more.
I'm fascinated by this, and I guess I'm going to put two of these together. Two of mine together. Will the best Americans play the most? Is a big question. And one of the players, the figures of this that center on is Bryson DeChambeau. The American team has rightly been criticized as a boys' club. I think that is a fair criticism, critique. Zach Johnson's captaincy did not help that. But Bryson is without a doubt not in the boys' club. He's not.
No, he's not.
I don't think he ever will be in the boys' club. But I would say that quantitatively, he is one of the Americans' best players, particularly at Bethpage Black, a golf course that really rewards power and has enough space where he can really just kind of blast it around. And this is like, if we were playing a major championship at Bethpage tomorrow, I think you could make the case that Bryson would be like favorite 1A or B. You put Scotty there, and then Bryson would be right there because of the way the course fits his game.
Yep.
I think Bryson will play best ball. I am really curious to see if he will play alternate shot. And furthermore, like if you go down the list of American players and their forms, I think that you're looking at a situation where like almost you take Scotty and then the best players on the American team in terms of their form and how they're playing are like Ben Griffin, JJ Spawn, Harris English, Russell Henley. It's not JT. It's not Morikawa. And like my question is, are the best players going to play the most? Or are we going to fall into this trap of names and experience when what matters most is who's playing well to a certain extent?
I think, and this is maybe it's a slightly related point, but that over time, U.S. Ryder Cup captains, as someone who's like looked at a lot of this stuff and lived through some of it, have made the mistake of trying to like spread out the good players. Be like, oh, Tiger has to play with like an aging Paul Azinger or like Mark Calcavecchia, or like, oh, we got to sit Phil with like David Toms, or let's put, David Duval with, Chad Campbell or something absurd. Like, I think honestly, I would seriously consider saying to Scotty, how would you like to do like 3 sessions with Bryson? Let's just go out there and like the two of you, I think can get me 3 points. Because you can get 3 points out of that, the two of them, like I wouldn't worry as much about like, okay, well, I would just be like, I got 2 horses right here. Let's play them a lot. Scotty's good at like, his personality is fine enough to get along with Bryson. This idea that like they couldn't play alternate shot together because they're not best buddies, like the heck with that. Why wouldn't I rather have Bryson playing with Scotty than Sam Burns and Scotty? Like I'm having a huge advantage hitting, Scotty hitting wedges into like some of these holes at Bethpage, like because Bryson's just drove it 380. I would absolutely like lean on Bryson as much as I could. Basically be like, you know what? I think you're one of the 4 best players in the world. Like it's basically Rory, you, Rahm, and Scotty. Let's go out and just put the pedal down and ride you like a horse, man. Because this is the kind of course where you could absolutely like dominate. And I wouldn't worry about like the fussiness of the personality stuff.
I could see the Scotty Bryson best ball pairing work really well. I might look at a different pairing for Bryson as a alt shot pairing. Like I'd be like the Russ Henley Scotty alt shot pairings work really well because Russell Henley hits a lot of fairways, and it's like you give Scotty Scheffler the opportunity to hit from the fairway. His 4-iron is better than most guys' 7-irons. With Bryson, I think like you have the opportunity to give somebody wedges into elevated targets that's probably used to hitting like mid-irons into these targets. And the alternate shot pairing, like Bryson opens up, it unlocks I don't know if they're going to play him alternate shot. I could see a world where they just don't play him alternate shot. Yeah. And I think it's a mistake. I think like if you look at that US team, Harris English is one of your probably best weapons just because of the consistency. What what you're getting from him. He had one of the best seasons on tour. JJ Spawn's not going to be a sexy name. It's not going to get the New York fans riled up like Justin Thomas, but guess what? JJ Spawn's been like an unequivocally better golfer the last 6 months than Justin Thomas has been. Yeah. And especially at a golf course that rewards some sort of driving acumen. JT's been, he just hits balls that he hits 1 or 2 drives a round that seemingly just derails his tournaments. And in a match play format, like if you hit some tee shots that just automatically lose holes, it's kind of a disaster. And that's what you're trying to avoid when you're playing these matches.
I would agree with that. I would say, I just think like with the alternate shot thing, Bryson wants to be liked by people who he's around. Like this idea that Bryson is kind of annoying or pisses everyone off, that might be true, but he's going to try really hard for whomever he is paired with to sort of make it work. And so like Justin Thomas and Bryson don't particularly like each other, from my understanding. I still think Bryson would try so freaking hard to be like Justin Thomas's like Ryder Cup buddy. Like, he would absolutely love giving JT wedges into a bunch of holes. And I would play him in alternate shot too, for sure.
I honestly, like, that Whistling Straits was kind of a landslide.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to say, like, Bryson injected so much energy into that American team with his tee shots.
It's going to be even more so. He's going to treat every hole like an amphitheater. I think he's going to get people, like, he's going to be waving his arms and pumping his fist, and all of the Bryson Hardos are going to be there, like doing push-ups in the behind the ropes and, jumping on each other's shoulders and backs and down in beers.
You know whose four ball pairing was at Whistling Straits?
Was it Scotty?
It was.
Yeah.
So he only played 4-ball.
Yeah.
4-ball.
I don't know
singles,
what the
obviously.
reluctance is to play him. I mean, I guess he played alternate shot with Phil in Italy, or in France. Excuse me.
Honestly, I can't wait to read your whole Ryder Cup captains. That's going to come out Tuesday. You ranked all the last 14 Ryder Cup captains.
I have, yes. But ranking David Love twice. David Love twice.
The idea of pairing Bryson and Phil, who Phil like unequivocally didn't have it that week, and everybody knew. Yes. Pairing them in alternate shot at a water-heavy golf course, a golf course where there's water everywhere, was one of the worst captain's decisions of all time.
Correct. I think Furyk's bad captaincy is sort of underrated in its badness, because most people like Furyk, and like we don't want to admit like how disastrous. Like 3 of his captain's picks didn't win a single match. Tony Finau was his best captain's pick. It's truly like, that's kind of like Tom Watson territory, and I mean that I won't spoil what it is, but like, Zach's Ryder Cup captaincy, I think, is, even though it's really close to us, it's almost underrated in its badness, in terms of how terrible it was. The just vibes were horrendous, motivation horrendous, boys club stuff horrendous. The Americans have really they've had some amazing captains between Hal Sutton, Tom Watson, Zach Johnson, Jim Furyk. It's even Curtis Strange and Corey Pavin made some really dumbass decisions. It's incredible.
I also I think that the Americans, and I don't want this to come across necessarily the wrong way, but there's just a more narcissistic assholes that tend to sure. be on the American Ryder Cup team.
That's fair,
which lends themselves to more drama.
Yes.
Like the idea, I'm actually amazed when you interview or talk to these players about athletics growing up. Mm-hmm. How many golfers say I picked golf because I didn't have to rely on teammates. That's a
number one draft pick in terms of reasons why they decided to do it. Often
it's so, you hear that so often.
I didn't play well with others, so I decided to go golf.
So then you have this event where they don't ever play with others, and then you bring them together and they have to play as a team, and the captain gets blamed no matter what, which is amazing.
If you look back at the last 25 years or so and you try to think of European Ryder Cup controversies, they got destroyed in Whistling and in Hazeltine, and they didn't like knife their captains at all. Like the only captain that they ever truly shit on was Faldo. And that was in part because Faldo was like, went on the broadcast and said, oh, Sergio got dumped by Greg Norman's daughter that week, so he was worthless and there was just no point in having him out there. And Sergio was rightfully like pissed. Like Faldo's the only guy that they ever hated.
Should they have brought Sergio in as an ass captain?
You know, I would have sort of listened to like Justin and Rory on that and basically said, if you think that he will be helpful to us, like you've played on a lot of Ryder Cup teams with him, then I'll go ahead and do it. But otherwise, like I'm not interested in it. I think the good thing too is it's not like Luke isn't, he played on a lot of teams with Sergio, so he knows like whether he's would add anything or if he'd just be, a nuisance or a whiner. I mean, you could make a case, I think, that Sergio, would be that someday Sergio, when wounds sort of heal a little bit, that Sergio definitely should be a Ryder Cup captain. And so you'd want him to kind of be involved in a lot of this stuff. But it's almost like by not bringing him around, they're saying like, yeah, we don't think this is ever really these rifts are ever really going to heal. Like,
I could see him as an assistant captain just getting into kerfuffles on the sidelines.
Yeah.
It would be kind of amazing.
Him and Kevin Kisner like sticking a finger in each other's face. You want to go, bro?
Probably just arguing about Texas, Georgia football.
Probably. Not much of an argument there these days, man. All right. My next one would be, what version of Viktor Hovland are we going to see? Viktor Hovland, the last time we had a Ryder Cup, was probably the best player in the world for that like brief, 2 or 3 month period. Came off just a dominant performance in the FedEx Cup, was all of a sudden had a really, really good, really credible short game. Very first hole of his Ryder Cup, comes out and has that amazing chip in that basically just like gets the crowd going bonkers, sets the tone for that entire Ryder Cup. He's part of that just historical ass kicking of Scotty and Brooks with Ludwig. Will that Viktor Hovland be, or I don't think we'll see that Viktor Hovland, because it's just, that was kind of like the peak of his powers. Everything about his swing was kind of perfect in that moment, and he had to kind of break it down and rebuild it because he's Viktor Hovland. But I think that, he's trending upwards. He's not one of the sort of, I would say, certainly not one of the 5 best players in the world, probably not one of the 10 best players in the world, but he's played a lot better in the last 4 months than he did the previous, 6 to 8 months. And so he's someone who cares about this stuff, who has lived in the cauldron. I think he went 3-1 in Italy, but he was bad in Whistling. So like, what happens if we get the version that we saw, at Whistling, where, he just wasn't really worth much. He completely didn't have it that week. And I think that's be a big key. If the Europeans are going to pull off an upset, they need Hovland to be good.
Yeah. And I think at Whistling Straits, he was such a young pup at that point, right? You could see, okay, this kid's going to be here for a long time, but he's also getting just thrown into the ring of fire. And he was like it felt like one of the few Europeans that week that could really like keep up with some of these guys, the Americans. He had that modern style of play versus, watching Westy out there.
Bunting it out there. I know that must have been tough for you.
It was. I went out and watched like the last few holes of his singles match after the tournament, or the competition was over. Yeah. Brought him in. I think he halved that match. I think he ended his Ryder Cup career with a half.
I know,
but then
Poulter
he was getting questions about being a captain.
Was he?
Yeah.
Do you think he should be a captain?
The one thing about Westy is that he won't be reading any like books on war strategy, since he's always proud of the fact that he's never read a book.
It's truly one of my all-time favorite anecdotes.
So he's not going to be your captain. That's, I honestly think he has the potential to be like analytics. No, Dodo Molinari, get out of here.
Another Faldo captaincy would be sweet.
I could see it though, as wounds heal. That's like a fascinating aspect of the European team is what happens to this captaincy, because like the surefire captains were Sergio, Poulter, Westwood. Obviously Stenson was selected and then left. Like who's next for them? Rory has been vocally opposed to being a playing captain, but if he continues to be a high level player for the Europeans into his late 40s, which is totally feasible, maybe he eventually becomes one. But I think with Hovland, the vibes were so good last year. He was coming in off of the FedEx Cup win. he paired up with fellow young Scandinavian player Ludwig, who also was playing great golf, setting the world on fire early in his career to get selected for the team. And you kind of look at it and it's like, well, like they were nails. And I think like that's something that I think like they're going to be paired together again. In their matches together, they went 2-1. They lost to Burns and Morikawa in 4-ball, but you have to think that I like that you selected Hovland. Like Hovland and Ludwig, if those guys play well, I think Europe can win. I don't think they can win if they don't play well.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And like, I'm always, as a sort of lover of the Ryder Cup, searching for like those guys who can just pair together forever. Like we'll find another like Seve and Jose Maria. And so it'd be fun. Like if that was like the Scandinavian version of that, like if we just saw Ludwig and Hovland like play together for 10 years, how fun would that be? And that was supposed to be Spieth and JT, and Spieth kind of, let us down in that sense. So I want more of those kind of like classic pairings where like, all right,
well, it was these guys are going to be
the dudes.
Spieth.
It's true.
And then JT swooped in and stole P's partner.
I got to say, it's a little sad to me that this is the third Ryder Cup cycle without Patrick Reed. He made the event fun. Even when he was like being a total, clown in France. It just
think about the President's Cup at Royal Melbourne without him.
Yeah,
he had done the shovel incident the week before, and then Kessler punched a fan.
Yeah. Bring back Captain America. He should be an assistant captain, Andy. Let Sergio and Reed sort of play in. They should play in the celebrity match before. That would be great.
A way you could ensure that you get a playing captain would be to pick Patrick Reed as the captain.
Sure. Why not?
All right, let's take a quick break to talk about our partner, Club Champion. We are so excited to have them again as a partner in 2025. I guess you could say that I've been partnered with Club Champion since high school. They've been the people that have made my clubs from when they were a tiny, small business in Chicago to now they have studios all over the country where you can go get your clubs fitted. Club Champion, listen, what I love about them is I think like a lot of people get this like equipment envy. You're looking in the bag, you're looking at other people's equipment and you're thinking, oh, that looks nice. This could be for me. I guess this is just maybe my personality. I go to Club Champion, I get fit. I know these are the right clubs for me and I'm set. And I don't ever look in other people's bags with envy of what they have and what I don't have, because I know, hey, these are the clubs that are fit best for me. And these are the numbers that back that up. Perfect example. I got a set of irons. I never thought I'd be using the brand of irons I'd be using. But when we looked at the numbers, it was just so clear, far and away the best iron for me that it makes ton of sense. And when I'm swinging it well, I have so much confidence in my irons, like where I'm going to hit it right where I'm looking, and it's going to come out the right window. When I'm not swinging great, I know that like it's probably keeping it within, the dispersion cone that's tighter than anything else I would be using. So this goes through the bag, the driver, everything, and every store. One of the nice things about this, they have all the brands. You're not looking at just one brand or one type of club. They have all the brands, all the different shafts. And, when you add it all up, every store has over 70,000 combinations of heads and shafts that you can try out. So this is not just for good players. This is the easiest way to improve your game, is just have, clubs that fit you and that are built for you. So get a free driver or iron fitting with a club purchase using the code FRIEDEGG at clubchampion.com/FRIEDEGG. That's clubchampion.com/friedegg and use the code friedegg, no spaces, for a free driver or iron fitting with a club purchase. Thanks to Club Champion. Let's get back to the podcast. My next one is Collin Morikawa.
Okay.
I think throughout his career, he's been an incredible Ryder Cup player. And why he's been an incredible Ryder Cup player is that the guy, up until this year, has been a generational iron player. And in match play, I think just in match play in general, the thing that can rip an opponent's heart out more than anything is just approaches that make you feel like you never have a chance. Mm-hmm. It's what Scotty can do to you. It's what Morikawa up until this year was doing with regularity. It's where, God, it doesn't matter where he is. And I think one of the things with Morikawa and his lack of distance that is interesting with match play is he's hitting first into greens and he's applying pressure with his otherworldly, generational talent of iron play. Collin Morikawa's, by his career, and I think like it's important to just note, he set an unbelievable standard of play since he's turned pro, where he's been one of the most consistent, great players in the game of golf. But this year he's been bad. He has not been good. He's 31 in the Data Golf rankings. And, he's seen a dip in his approach play. And I think like he's been one, that pairing of DJ and Morikawa was so stout at Whistling Straits the last time around. And he's just been kind of this player that, when you talk about high floor players, like we mentioned earlier in the year, he's been like effectively like you just put him out and you know what you're getting. And this is the first year going into this where you don't really know what you're getting from him. And I think like the U.S. team, I'm just curious how much he plays. And if he's got it, I think they're going to be really hard to beat. But because like you're talking about a player that could be a Scotty tier player, maybe not all the way to Scotty, but he can have that type of impact. You could put him out in any format and he's going to fit in like a glove with anybody because he drives the ball in the fairway and he hits approaches close, right? Like that's what a dream alternate shot pairing player is. And I just think that if it goes south, like if he's not playing well, that U.S. team is not as it just is a big hole in that U.S. team because they don't have many guys that hit irons the way he does.
Yeah. You could see like with the course setup at Whistling that they were basically like, we're better long iron players than you. And like DJ and Brooks and, Collin are going to be like flagging 6 irons on some of these like 200-yard par 3s. And if you think you can beat us, great, but we're going to be just better. And, I specifically remember like, that Saturday, like how good he and DJ were, like just, going at some of those pins from long ways away. And the Euros just didn't have that same kind of firepower. And so you're right. Like that's what Bethpage is, right? You're going to have yard approaches that are 190 yards, 185 yards, somewhere in there. And, to elevated greens. Like if Collin is that dude again, then I think you're right. Like Americans are really going to be tough to beat. My next one, I think it's a pretty important one, Andy, is how rowdy will the crowd be? We've been talking about this sort of Bethpage Ryder Cup for, almost 10 years. I remember Brooks saying how badly he wanted to be a part of that when he won at Bethpage because he was basically like, oh yeah, they're going to be out of control. It's going to be like a real true sporting event. Like, now, was that before he found out the ticket prices were like $1,300 a man? Like, maybe. But I still think there's going to be a lot of, look, home field advantage does really matter. Yeah, the course setup is part of it. But the energy that the crowd brings to match play and how hard it is to silence those people if the other team is playing well is a real thing. And so will we get like will, even at that PGA at Bethpage, some of the behavior sort of spilled over where they were kicking people out and people were acting like knuckleheads. I am very curious to see if it goes over the line because there are a lot of players on the European team who tend to have kind of rabbit ears, whether it's Justin Rose, whether it's Tyrrell Hatton, whether it's John Rahm, even Rory. Like, they hear the things that the crowds have to say. And I think the crowds
That's what the VR headsets are for.
That's right. We might have truly be in a dark place and where people wearing VR headsets were having people scream obscenities in their ears and say horrible things about their family, that they have to train for that in anticipation of a sporting event. So I am very curious, because if the Euros get up, if they have some success in, the foursomes like they often do, although they haven't so much in the US, will that sort of mute the crowd a little bit? And if the US takes in an early kind of swing, man, it could be running downhill fast. It could snowball, and any chance of an upset could be really tough for the Euros.
Yeah, you get those roars. I match play more than stroke play, I think, is just such a momentum thing. Everybody says oh, play this just like you would play a normal stroke play event. It's just not possible. You're worried about what other people are doing.
It's why Tiger was not a great Ryder Cup player, because he played it just like it was a stroke play event. He didn't make mistakes, but he didn't take a lot of chances. And, guys got up to play him. And it's just, Tiger was the greatest stroke player of his generation, if not every generation. And that wasn't the right mentality to take to Ryder Cups.
I would ask this question, and it's my last thing here. Does this need to be a competitive Ryder Cup? Does the Ryder Cup need a competitive Ryder Cup? Because if you go back through kind of the archives, the last competitive, where on Sunday anything could happen, and it was a huge comeback Ryder Cup, was Medina. The last one that was really tight, going into Sunday was 2010 at Celtic Manor.
Yeah, 8-8, I believe, right?
Uh-huh.
Or no, something like that. The US was down 3. They were 8-8 in the Curtis Strange year. Yeah, I mean, I think you can make a good argument that if it's a blowout in favor of the US, that we might need to talk about the home field advantage is just gotten to be too much, because we just saw, these two teams get completely blown out in the reverse 2 years ago. So if it totally flips, I don't know, maybe should an independent committee set up the courses? Should there not be as many captain's picks? I don't know what the answer would be. I don't know. Maybe it's just hey, keep going with it until somebody breaks the cycle. And then it's like holding serve in tennis, right? If you broke Pete Sampras when he was at the height of his powers, you deserved to win those matches. And if you couldn't, that was part of the deal. It was why it made it so tough, because he was the greatest server of that time. And maybe that's the deal with playing at home in Ryder Cups. You should win those Ryder Cups. So the pressure is on you to win them.
I think if you get a close one, it becomes just such a spectacle on Sunday, and it becomes one of the rare sports events. I'm not saying it's going to outrate the NFL, but it's one of the rare sports events where you can put it up against the NFL and have success. I think the Ryder Cup makes it just so easy for fans to get into it, because it's US versus Europe, right? And everybody knows what side they're on, and it's easy to understand. I think another interesting subplot here is what happens if the Euros win? What happens to the US team? Are we running towards another kind of reset of how we think about the Ryder Cup as an American side?
Do they form a circular firing squad? And I think that brings me to what I think is probably the final point, Andy, is Keegan Bradley. There is a lot of pressure. There would be more pressure if he was playing, if he was a playing captain. But there is a lot of pressure on him to essentially hold serve. Like I said before, he wanted so badly to be involved in the Ryder Cup. It was as important as anything in his career. We joke about the suitcase, not unpacking it, but the man truly cares about this event.
Just, for people that don't know that story, can you just, Go on that story real quick
So the U.S. had like Ryder Cup team luggage, and after Medina, Keegan brought home, all of his stuff in his suitcase, and he was like too miserable to unpack it. He's like, I just can't like think about like looking at all that team uniform stuff and everything that went into all the feelings of that, and just how close we were to winning and how embarrassing it is. And it kind of dragged on. He was like, eventually, like, all right, well, I'll unpack it like when I make next Ryder Cup team, and or when we win a Ryder Cup, and just like didn't win a Ryder Cup in 14, didn't make the team in 16, didn't make it in 18, didn't make it in 20. It was just like it became kind of like a little bit of a joke amongst us golf nerds, like, oh, how bad does that suitcase smell? Not knowing that it really existed. And then Keegan, to his credit, was like, he went into his garage and was like, yep, there's the suitcase. Like, it's actually still never been unpacked. And so, and I think there might be a bottle of champagne in there. I can't remember what exactly he doesn't even remember.
I
think
they
what
have
is
to
in
drink
there.
the champagne that's been just sitting in like a hot garage for years.
I mean, shout out to Keegan for having the same house, I think, all this year. I mean, imagine if you had the sad humiliation if you like moved your house and you had to pack up that suitcase and then find a new place for it at your new house in your new garage. So, I'm sure that if they win, there'll be some sort of joke where Keegan, on Good Morning America or something, like rips open that suitcase and, we get to see those musty Medina, uniforms from Ralph Lauren. But I think if he wins, if the U.S. does really well and they sort of embrace Keegan as a result, it'll kind of be like the defeat of the boys club in a lot of ways. Like the idea of like, this person was an outsider. They flipped the script and basically like, you pouty babies, you've been, you have your little cadre of people. It hasn't worked out. It's not that long ago. They just won in Whistling. So the narrative isn't quite as tidy as we would like to make it, but it's almost like a movie script of like them rallying around Keegan and be like, you know what? We were wrong all this time. You should have been part of some of these squads. You cared about this thing like never before. And hopefully it'd be interesting. Like, what if Keegan uses this and then has another great 2 years as a player and then makes the team in a dare? Like, can we call him a playing captain then? Like, obviously I don't think he's going to be the captain 2 cycles in a row, but
if he wins, do they have a choice but to make him a captain? Though is a good question, because like I feel like the European side, it was like, well, we have to do Luke Donald. We have to give them the chance to go win abroad.
I think they're sort of stalling. Maybe I think that the Europeans are stalling until Justin Rose can be the captain. That will feel like, because Westy and
the content from him as the captain will
Rose
be
might be one of the all-time fun captains of just overly serious, very intense, very English. I'm ready for it already. But I think Tiger's going to want to.
Rose. There'd be a big team.
I think Tiger's going to want to be the captain in 2 years, and so it's I think Keegan would happily stand down for Tiger. But if Tiger says no, I'm not going to do it. If he does something else, like blows out a knee or has to get his hip replaced or whatever,
or he's getting married. Could be getting married.
Very possible. He could be appointed an ambassador somewhere. For all we know, like these are all on the table. He could be on the Supreme Court. For anything is possible. So I think that Tiger will, if he doesn't want it, then Keegan could say like, well, I'll go another round. Like I'll see you do this again. But I think this is Keegan's one shot to sort of prove that everybody was wrong to keep him out of this event for all those years. And man, it would be kind of sweet as someone who's like irrationally liked Keegan for a long time. I'm excited for it if that happens for him.
If Europe wins, do you just keep rolling Luke Donald out?
You know what? I think I kind of find that to be cheating. I honestly, like, I don't like it. I think that you should just have to flip the calendar every 2 years and pick a new captain, because that's what gives us fun content. Like, how much fun would it be if Westy was the captain this year? Or if they had to go with Sergio. I don't think
I'm ready for that.
I don't know. I like it that you get your one shot and then you put everything into it. And then once that's done, like, yeah, we're moving on. I mean, Paul Azinger probably should have been a captain for a couple cycles. I mean, he was basically the person who restored pride in the Americans. They'd won like 3 Ryder Cups in 25 years when he, finally kind of like was like, you know what, we shouldn't be losing Ryder Cups at home. And they should have won a Medina. That was kind of a fluke, once in a lifetime thing that they gave up that lead on Sunday. But I don't want to see a Tony Jacklin situation where it's like he gets to do it forever. I want them to have to keep bringing up new blood through the system.
All right. Well, what's your pick? Who's your pick? We'll pick the side and the MVP.
Man, I was really I thought, I don't want to waffle too much here because I'm going to stick with my original pick. I'm going to pick Europe. I didn't think, I thought that this was like a no brainer like 4 or 5 months ago. I was like, or even 2 years ago, I was like, I think Europe's going to win. I remember saying that 2 years ago. I was like, I think this will be the first time that flips it. I'm a little less confident in that. I feel like Keegan has done a lot right. And I still think like they have 2 of the best players in the world in Scotty and Bryson. And they have a lot of guys with some pretty high ceilings for talent wise. If Brooks hadn't fallen off a cliff, I'd feel a little bit better. Like having Brooks Koepka at Bethpage would be kind of a neat, weapon to have. He's shown that this is straight up his kind of golf course. But I'm still going to stick with Europe. I'm going to say that they're, whether it's 14.5 to 13.5 or 14-14 and they retain, I think they're going to get it done.
I'm going with Europe also. I just think their players fit a golf course that presents a horse for the course type setup better than the Americans, and it's a pretty even talent, kind of spread. And I think like if you look at just by nature the guys that qualified from the American side, you don't have a lot of prolific drivers of the golf ball. And then you look on the other side and you look at Ludwig and Rahm and even the weakest player on the European side, Rasmus Højgaard's a great driver of the golf ball. Bob McIntyre, great driver. Like you just look at the 2 sides and I think the course fit really leans towards the Europeans. I will put Tommy Fleetwood as my MVP. I think he is. I think he's just, he's starting to develop a sensational Ryder Cup record. Obviously, the France is well known, but he was really good in Rome, and I think he's coming in as good a form as anybody in the world. So I'm going to go with Europe also, which I've been kind of on, and I think we're going to get hammered in the lead up of this. And sure. I think there's so much content that's going to come out. We'll have a ton on the Fried Egg. You can check out that. We have a Ryder Cup hub, which we've put a lot of time and effort into. Go check that out. It has like little blurbs about every player. It has, we'll be rolling out daily newsletters. Kevin, you'll be on site with me and a bunch of us and we'll be pumping out daily content. Thanks for joining. People can read your stuff in the newsletter on the website, and it's great to have you be a part of the team.
Thanks, bud. Looking forward to it.
All right. Big thanks to PJ Clark for editing and producing this podcast. We can't wait for the Ryder Cup. Huge week ahead, as I mentioned at the back half of the pod. If you don't already subscribe to the newsletter, I think with Kevin coming on board, we're going to put a greater emphasis on that than ever before. I think the quality, we obviously have great writers in Brendan Porath and Garrett Morrison and Joseph Lamagna already in there. I mean, Joseph does so much work in there, and it's great work. Like the idea of the newsletter is just, let's make it, this is a must read. So I think you'll enjoy it. It's free. Sign up for that, and pay attention to the socials and everything we got going out, and visit the Ryder Cup Hub. That's a new kind of website feature. We're really excited about rolling out new features on the website, and we think that one's really neat. And there's a ton of content that's loaded in there for you to kind of peruse and get in that Ryder Cup mood. All right. thank you again. We'll be back next week breaking down what happened at the Ryder Cup.